Finally getting her turn with the tune-up treatment, it is the Red Riding Hood type, RED01 Chapero Rouge, regraded, with a kit of Repair, Shoot Boost, Mega Gatling, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Trigger Happy, which buffs all leg stats, minus armor and heavy limit, for every critical hit scored by a shooting skill. Now, uniquely enough, I actually have yet to cover Chapero Rouge in a formal review, so it'll be rather interesting with my first official review of her being that of a tune-up and a regraded treatment. But, all the same, her kit as an auxiliary shooter and an auxiliary supporter definitely makes her place on any team she's on very clear. Repair is a healing-based skill that will simply put will repair and restore any lost HP to a damaged but not broken part of herself or an ally. And of course, the efficiency of your healing is also tied to the healing level on her metal equipped, so naturally you want to put a very high emphasis on that if you choose to make use of that skill. Shoot Boost is a support-based skill that, when used, will buff the success and base power of all shooting attacks of herself or all allies that are also using shooting attacks. So a very good skill in particular for any shooting-dominant teams, or even just a skill for herself to make use of. Mega Gatling is a conventional shooting-based skill, but with extra base power and some more oomph behind the bullet. In particular, even though it is a scattered AoE, meaning it will damage one part normally and then two others at random at 1/3 damage, the mega part of the Gatling will also guarantee that it has a times 1.5 damage bonus as long as Chapero Rouge's legs are intact. So this is also naturally her main form of combat, which also solidifies her role more as an auxiliary shooter or a support shooter more than a dedicated one. But despite this, on the other hand, her leg ability of Trigger Happy does actually allow her kit as a whole to synergize moderately well together, given that her already fairly solid leg stats across the board, mid-upper 800s for her mobility, and almost about 700 or so, I believe, for her shoot resist, and about 1100 at base for her melee, is honestly very solid too. Very good female legs you can't ever go wrong with using, but especially for anyone that is using a shooting-based skill. But her kit as a whole does have very good synergy, as mentioned, as an auxiliary support more than a dedicated fighter, given that Shoot Boost can be used as a support skill for herself or any shooting-based allies, and Repair can be used for any supplemental HP healing as needed. Now, with her tune-up treatment, she basically takes what she had already and makes it a little more efficient and puts a little more kick behind it. Starting with her head, she has access to plus 100 to heat, plus 100 to cool. Repair has access to an extra 30% efficacy when used, so you'll get more healing back once you use her skill, and also one additional head use. Now, naturally, the extra efficacy to Repair is an absolute mandatory and must-have. That's something that goes without saying. You definitely have to have it if you're going to make use of this part. To be completely honest, on the other hand, I did mark an extra head use as the second best skill to make use of, but depending on how you choose to use Chapero Rouge's head, you could even go the extra 100 toward heat or cool either way and not really go wrong, as the extra 100 is moderately noticeable on the field, whereas the extra head use means she just gets an extra charge if necessary. Her right arm the Shoot Boost arm has access to plus 200 to armor, plus 100 to heat, and also a 100 to cool, much like her head, but with the added bonus that Shoot Boost will get an extra 50% bonus to success and power once activated. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that Shoot Boost bonus is an absolute must-have and a requirement if you are going to make use of Chapero Rouge, because that bonus to success and power means that even a scattered AoE like her Mega Gatling is going to be very, very painful once that effect does go into play. Now, for her others, it could honestly go either direction. I actually did not mark a second one in this case, as much like with her head, you could go heat or cool or even with armor very easily and not really have any major change in her overall performance. So I will leave that choice for her right arm up to you. Her left arm, and only form of damage, has access to plus 300 to power, plus 100 to heat and cool each as one single bonus, and then of course a bonus of damage plus, which will add an extra 0.5 to the base multiplier, capping the Mega Gatling now at times 2 instead of 1.5. And then upon her legs being broken, she is allowed to maintain a times 1.5 multiplier. Now, Granted, with Mega Gatling, Giga Gatling, Power Rifle, or pretty much any skill that has that 1.5 bonus, it is very, very important that you maintain the user's legs in order to keep that damage bonus. Otherwise, it just reverts down to, say, basic Gatling, basic Rifle, and so on and so forth. But with the damage plus, this does allow Chapero Rouge to maintain that and keep that even just a little bit of a multiplier until her legs can be restored or until the battle is complete. Now with it being a scattered AoE, I would also definitely recommend the plus 300 to power as well to make sure that every hit that lands is one that's going to count. And given that her base power with that is already in the high 1600s, that plus 300 alone before any other bonuses will definitely come in handy. Her legs have access to shoot and melee resist plus 300 each as one bonus, plus 300 to evade. Trigger Happy gets an additional 10% boost to stats when activated, and then S-Rank on Prairie Terrain. Now, shoot and melee resist or even evade, you could go either direction with her, depending on how you want to build Chapero Rouge, but I would put an emphasis on the shoot and melee resist, given that they will make her just a little bit tankier and harder to kill so that she can stay on the field and in the game longer. Trigger Happy is definitely a must-have in this case, as she'll get an additional 10% on top of what she's already getting upon every time that the Trigger Happy ability is activated, which, as a reminder, buffs all of her leg stats, minus armor and heavy limit, for every critical hit she scores with her gun. So this honestly is something that goes without saying as well as a must-have. S-Rank on Prairie Terrain, much like every other biped that we have seen up to this point get the tune-up treatment, nice to have, but because bipeds already have A rank, I would honestly skip on this one as well, as that extra 10% bonus really isn't going to be all that groundbreaking, and thus you could honestly skip out on that upgrade. Now that being said, as mentioned, I had not covered Chapero Rouge up to this point officially, but with this being my official breakdown and regraded breakdown of her, I originally had her graded in my presentations at about a 7 out of 10 for her pure set score, and a 7.5 out of 10 for her mixed parts, given that she has very good synergy with herself as an auxiliary shooter and supporter, and the repair skill on top of that does honestly serve as a nice bonus. And the Trigger Happy also does synergize with Shoot Boost and Mega Gatling very well, as something you really can't ever go wrong with. Now, with all the upgrades in question, once you do finish capping her out, I would have to grade her pure set score at a 7.5 out of 10, and her mixed parts score at an 8 out of 10. She has very good synergy, like I said, which means as an auxiliary support, you really can't ever go wrong with using her, but it is also important to note that you do not want to rely on her for your primary damage. That is not her role, that is not what she intends. She intends primarily to shoot for cover more than actually for damage, so you might want to make sure that you pair her off with someone that can cover for her, or for someone that can do most of the damage that she can complement with.